Hello everyone. I wanted to make a tutorial that helps you to set up your courses so that you can use Haiku classes for grading purposes. All right. There are essentially two steps to this process. The first one is choosing a course schedule that is appropriate to your class. So I'm going to go to my test class and let's take a look at doing that. As with any other setting that might affect your entire class, you would do this step under Manage Class, that's the menu in the upper right-hand corner here, and navigate to the first item, which is Class Settings. Conveniently enough, on the top there are four tabs. The one farthest to the right says Class Schedule. All right, and so this one here represents one of the two scenarios that seem to be operating here at Branson, which is that there's a year-long weighted schedule, meaning that these grading periods, otherwise known as snapshots, are all six of them, each have a weighted average towards the total grade. If you want to do a weighted average grade that is then averaged in with the final grade, this is what you would select. This applies to, I know for example that the languages department uses this. But if, for example, you're in science or math or another department that does not use weighted averages for the snapshots, I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Click OK. And I'm going to choose a schedule, and you'll see the whole drop-down that's available to you. So this schedule here, there's lots of them because we have trimester courses as well, but the two that would probably be used the most often will be the YL, meaning year-long weighted, that's what we just saw, and the year-long running. So let me check running for this one. And basically running just says it's only got one semester, which is August 29th to June 11th. It organizes the entire year as one grading period. There's no weighting of snapshots that is done. So let's just choose that one for argument's sake, but you may choose any schedule that's appropriate. And as you will see, there are schedules that reflect the courses that will be taught in just one of the trimesters as well. So let's save that. Okay, and then you're going to get a message saying that it's applying this to the class. Don't worry about it, you're fine. You can refresh the page if you wish. But once you're done with that, if you go to Manage Class again and go to Class Settings and Class Schedule, you should see that the schedule has been selected and double check that that's the one that you want. All right. The second step that you're going to want to engage in is to go to your class, and you're going to want to navigate from Assess down to Grades. And when you get there, I have a gradebook here, but let's go ahead and I'm going to add a gradebook. If you don't have a gradebook, there will be a really obvious button that sits on your class that says Add Gradebook. All right. Now the first part of this is giving your gradebook a name. Now, you may not think that it matters, but it does. I would recommend that you give the gradebook a name that includes the name of your class. So for example, since this is called my test class, I'm going to call it Test Class 2014-2015. The reason I would do this is that when your students log into the Haiku on their iPads or their computers, if you are choosing to post any grades, the grade books that will show up as links for them to check will be this name here. And if all you have done is typed Gradebook 2014-2015 and 5 other teachers do the same thing, the students will see a long list of grade books that all have the same name, and that's not really going to help them out very much. So I would just give it an identifier by including the class name and maybe the date, but that is entirely up to you. Okay. Let's say you want to use gradebook categories. We'll give you all of the options here. This is mandatory. Everybody needs to include a final. You can choose how you round. I recommend leaving percent and grade. It will show both. That can help. Here, the Branson grading scale is the one you want. You do have the option down here to create new. Please do not. This is the official sanctioned grading scale that is published for everybody in the Branson community, so we want to make sure that everybody is using that. And this is less important. Branson notation, you can make your own notations. Basically, these are just notations you can enter into the gradebook that will either count as 0 points, or meaning no credit, it will excuse the grade for the student, or will count as full credit. And I have some examples in here, but if you want to know more about this, we can address this at a different time. But you're welcome to create your own or use notations that have already been created. So I'll save this. And now category weighting. Let's say we only have 2 categories. Let's say we have homework and test. And let's say the homework is 70%. Now notice if I click outside of that, this red number down here, 120, this needs to, by definition, be 100%. So I can play around with these numbers and add as many categories as I want. And I'm going to go ahead and add another category. I'll go participation, and I'll go 15. So now we have 135%, so I need to adjust. So I'm going to go down here. Actually, since I have 3 categories now, I'm going to adjust them all to be a little bit more friendly, and I'll just go adjust this one down to 10, and voila, when it goes black at 100%, you're all set to go. All right, so now I have it, my categories are at 100%, that's how I want. I can click next. All right, the grading period. Now here is where you decide how the final grade in the class is going to be calculated. And as far as I'm aware, the Branson policy seems to be that it's a 90-10, that the school year's academic content, which would be grading period 1 going from August to June, would count for 90% of the students graded, then the final would be 10%. Ignore the fact that it says semester 1. Essentially, you're treating the entire year as one semester. Okay. All right. And once you have done that, you now have a gradebook that is set up. And for later tutorials and discussions, we'll talk about how to actually enter categories and items directly in the gradebook. All right. But should you decide that you wish a different grading schedule, the process of setting it up, your gradebook up, is essentially the same with one small detail. All right, so I'm going to go to, this is the new gradebook. I'm actually going to delete this gradebook under Manage Gradebook. I'm going to say OK. I just created it. Okay. I'm then going to go to Manage Class and Class Settings, and this time I'm going to change the schedule. I'm going to remove this schedule, and I'm going to change the schedule to the one that's the year-long weighted, and then you see the 6 snapshot periods. So I'm doing the same process I did before. All right, refresh the page if I want. All right, so now, and once again, this is a pre-existing gradebook. I'm going to add a new gradebook. Do the same thing, test class 2. And I'm going to include the same items I did before, only this time, I'm going to use category weighting. I'm going to go homework, I'm going to go test, I'm going to go participation. I believe this came out to be something like 60, 10, and 30, I believe, right? All right, so this is, I've set up the gradebook exactly the same as I did in the other scenario, but in this case, it's going to be slightly different. This screen here, since I've chosen the weighted averages, each one of the snapshots now, 1 through 6, has an automatically predefined 14% weighted average, okay, to determine that part of the year. And here's your year-to-date, your end of year final, which is 16%, so that it all adds up to 100%. So the way to change this is you simply change 16 to 10, all right, and then if you change each one of these grading periods or snapshots to 15, If you want them all weighted equally, then that will work out to 100. Now, should you have a grading period or two in which there are an unusually large number of projects, essays, whatever you might be working on, you might wish to give one or two of these grading periods um, additional weight. You could weight one of them 20% and then drop a few percentage points off of some of the others. That is entirely your choice, as long as it adds up to 100. The only comment I would make is that when you're setting up your grade book and projecting through the year, although you can change these things later on, you certainly can, be as able as possible to set up your gradebook and not have to make too many radical changes, because some changes, not this, but some changes in your gradebook can cause issues later on. Certainly things like changing your class schedule, that would be a much larger issue to deal with. But you could go back at any time and adjust the percentages for any one of these grading periods. Simply click Finish. And now you've set up the gradebook for weighted terms. All right, so there we go.